As the general equilibrium, for example, China is the rich in labor endowment. The labor supply is abundant in China, and therefore the return to the labor or the wage rate is low in China. That's the first part of this factor flows. That's just an example of the first part of the factor flows. And other factors such as consumer preference also impact the product demands, and therefore the product factor demand and eventually the labor input factor price, the labor price. If the factor stock ratio differs, the capital to labor ratio differs. That causes the difference in production cost. As a consequence, if the labor productivity is the same, the different factor stock ratio or capital to labor ratio will bring first the difference in factor price, production cost, product price, and eventually the trade will happen. In this way, we can see the Hecksher-Ohlin is a general equilibrium model. It differs the factor stock from the factor supply because the endowment is not the same as what is supplied in the production economy, and it try to explain the difference between the relative price of trading products. This conclusion can be derived mathematically. There are also two derivative theorems. The first one is Rybczynski theory. It says the factor endowments changes influence the production structure. That is, when the price is constant, one factor, or for example, labor input increases, it will enhance the output of the sector intensively using this factor. That is the labor-intensive sector's output, for example, the textile or clothing sector's output, and therefore reduce the output of intensively using the other factors such as the capital-intensive sector, for example, the petroleum sector's labor input in that sector. The figure in the figure in the 4.3 shows this Rybczynski theory. Want to show us. This theorem says X is the labor intensive, for example, textile, and Y is capital intensive, such as petroleum. And if labor increases, the PPF shift outwards, and the labor productivity enhances from here to here. And the trend of productivity increasing the textile production, the production of textile expands faster than the growth pace of petroleum production. As change shifted more, and the upward is less than to the right hand side. Right hand shift to the right is more than to the up. So before the labor endowments increase, the production point is at the point A, at its axis x1 and y1. After the labor increments, the labor production point shifts to the A prime with the coordination of x2 and y2. Comparatively, the increment of textile production, the x2 minus x1 is positive, while the petroleum production increments, the y2 minus y1 is negative. That means the production of labor-intensive is increasing by this endowment. With the increment of labor as a unit factor, keeping the relative price, this relative price line, the slope are the same. The px divided by py constant. It takes premise as the relative factor price constant. That means its pre-assumption is that the relative factor prices is the same. But the factor productivity and the factor input ratio keep the constant. The only way to input more capital in the production of textile is to compromise the capital input in the production of petroleum. So in this way, we can see